beforehand. Yes, there we go. We're also recording it. The webinar on AWS Well-Architected, how to build a secure and efficient infrastructure on AWS. And as always, we have Jonas Jovaišas, Customer Success Manager here, who will be delivering the presentation today. So Jonas, say hi to the audience.
Hi, everyone.
And very happy to have him and all of you joining the event, and I hope you find it interesting and useful. But before we begin, let's start with a few words about CloudVisor and what we do for those of you who haven't heard of us before. We are an advanced tier AWS partner operating in the Baltics, Nordics, and beyond. And we work closely together with AWS to support current and new AWS users. Important note, majority of our clients are startups. Therefore, we're more than familiar with the ins and outs of building a startup, and we can help build your infrastructure in AWS and do it in a way where it scales very efficiently. Also, at the end of this webinar, we'll randomly select one winner out of all webinar participants to whom we'll deliver a free priority AWS WellArchitected review. What does that mean? We'll carry out an AWS infrastructure review based on the Well-Architected Framework and also fix the issues that we come across during the review free of charge, so that you can sleep calmly knowing that your infrastructure is set using the very best practices. And as I mentioned, Jonas will be the speaker today. I will be supporting him along the way. So before passing the screen to him, I just want to go over two things regarding the workflow for today. Questions are very welcome. Please just submit them in the Q&A or to the chat, and we'll go through them during the main presentation or after it's over, accordingly to the questions. And secondly, as you all saw and agreed, that we'll be recording the event and we'll share the recording with everybody on Monday. And that's it from my side. Jonas, take over.
Yes, of course. Thanks, Ott. Hi, everyone. I'm Jonas. I'm Customer Success Manager here at CloudVisor. And thank you very much for joining us today. And I will tell you more about the WellArchitected Framework, WellArchitected reviews, and basically what these tools and ideas are for. So today I will cover the introductory level to WellArchitected Framework, so you could understand what it is, most importantly, what it is not, and what the value this framework brings to you. Then I will briefly tell you about the WellArchitected Framework tool that you all can use, as well as some other content and resources that are available to help you determine how well architected your workloads are. So let me start it here. Take a brief moment and think. WellArchitected Framework is designed to help customers understand what is different when it comes to the cloud. We really hope that when asked, most customers would answer, sure, we are well architected. And when they are starting the journey in the cloud, we want them to be well architected to begin with. However, when you think more about this, we have to go a bit broader and think then simply answering that single initial question. And most of you probably know, WellArchitected Framework consists of 6 pillars. Here you see 5, but I'll just tell you why. So there are concepts around operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, cost optimization, and while the 6th, called sustainability, was added just this year, so it's not in the official slides just yet. So when you're asked, are you well architected, on the top level, you might think so, but as we dive deeper into each of these pillars, often the answer is not quite the same. You may know that there are things that you are currently not doing as well as you should, or you not have the opportunities to improve just now. So let's move on and think more about what you can do with the well-architected framework to better answer that initial question. The reason AWS has well-architected is to actually help customers apply this approach more consistently. And think of it as a process that you can use to review and understand your workloads on a consistent basis, and being able to do it through your workload's entire lifecycle and technology portfolio. But before we start talking more about the well-architected idea, here's a brief history about where well-architected comes from. So it began at around 2012. AWS solution architects, since back then, would consult numerous AWS customers. They would come and ask, are you well architected? That, as we know, is not a trivial question. So with time, it evolved into a common set of questions that architects would ask about the infrastructure design in order to gauge how well customer systems are adhering to then understood AWS best practices. It became clear that certain design features would lead to overall better systems running in the cloud. So in 2013, AWS solution architects recognized that they needed to be more consistent and created a common set of best practices to ask their customers about. And in 2014, these questions were categorized across 4 initial pillars. Then in 2015, AWS noted that not all customers have access to solution architects. Therefore, they published their findings on those best practices as a well-architected framework white paper. This was the result of several years of work after doing thousands of these reviews. And over time, in 2016, operational excellence pillar was added to the mix. And in 2017, AWS partners could be trained, conduct these reviews, and deliver the same level of value to a much broader set of customers. In 2018, another important addition was made. A self-service, well-architected tool was introduced, so that every customer could have a tool at hand to address the risks, learn how to mitigate them, and eventually improve their systems towards being closer to well-architected. And the latest addition was made in 2022 when a new sustainability pillar was added to the framework. So here, the important thing to note is that the well-architected framework is a set of best practices that were just perfected for the last decade from a long history of working and learning from AWS customers just like you. Okay, enough with the history. Let us now jump back to the framework itself. WellArchitected Framework covers a lot of different content. First, we're going to talk about why we should use it and what's the point of it. The root of all that is to help AWS customers build and deploy faster, reduce their fighting effort in the end, making things that are a bit different in the cloud, such as capacity management, automation, and security much easier to tame. And this allows them to experiment and release more often. The focus is not to keep fixing things. It is to bring value to our business and to do that quickly. Now, one of possible ways to allow that is by helping customers to identify the risks and then to reduce or mitigate them, even before moving the workload into the production. Another very important thing is that when you understand what those risks are and what best practices say, it allows you to make informed decisions. In a modern, complex systems, it's really possible to remove all the risks from the environment, but at least you are aware of them while you're operating your workloads. And the last thing was already mentioned, to actually learn and apply these best practices. So to sum it up, the WellArchitected Framework is a collection of best practices around infrastructure design, decisions for workloads operating in the cloud. So it might be a mouthful, but we will dive deeper just soon. Another important thing to understand about your infrastructure is that it changes, and well-architected framework here can act as a central mechanism. This mechanism here is a repeatable process that allows you to improve your systems during your cloud journey. WellArchitected Framework lets you learn the strategies and best practices of operating workloads in the cloud. And more importantly, It creates a consistent way for you to measure your workload progress against the best practices. And doing this over time will allow you to see consistent improvements in your design. So WellArchitected Framework brings much of the benefits that you could do on yourself, on your workloads. So it's a highly recommended approach for you to employ them into your regular operations. So this mechanism consists of three main parts. So the pillars that we heard already about, the design principles, and then the questions. They're made to help you look at the design principles, best practices, and those pillars, and to determine whether you are aligned with them or not. Do you know what they are? Are you following them? What risks they present? Or what should you do to mitigate those risks? Let's talk more about those pillars once again, and I would like to think of them as the foundation of a building. The time needed to build a really strong foundation, sometimes half of what it takes to build the whole building. And in a well-architected framework sense, if you want all your technologies to provide the best business value possible they are designed to, don't skip this foundation step. And these pillars are meant to help you build this foundation and identify and reduce any issues during this initial setup. And while, of course, using that continuous mechanism of well-architected. Next on the list are the design principles. There are two types of those, general and pillar-specific design principles. Now, an example of general design principle could be a security events response automation. While you might have an administrator that is always on alert to react and solve security incidents, human intervention is not always the best approach, especially with unintentional mistakes and inconsistency due to sleepiness happening at 2 a.m. So what could be a better way? Rather, you could just set certain security alerts or incidents to trigger automated responses. That would be consistent, error-free, would take some of the load and stress from your administrators. Look, there are many other general design principles that are laid down in the well-architected framework. So we really encourage you to take a look at them, and the links will be provided at the end of the presentation. And what about those pillar-specific design principles? Well, it's a bit out of scope here, but each pillar's description starts with the specific design principles, which can be seen as a part of that specific pillar. The next component of well-architected framework is the questions. As we asked in the beginning, are you well-architected? Is also a question, but not from well-architected framework. Here in the slide, we have an example of a question. The questions are sorted by the pillar they belong to. So this one, we have one from the reliability pillar. Each question covers some pillar area. This one is about failure management. And then there is some context provided telling you what it is about. So you could get a brief understanding and think how that does relate in your environment. And lastly, there's a number of examples set by other customers or best practices that would have to be implemented in your environments in order to cover design requirements represented by that specific question. And in total, there are 52 questions across 5 pillars. Now, let's talk once again about what is the intent of doing a well-architected review. The most important thing to understand in my mind is that it is not an audit, and there's no blaming. There is no pass or fail mark at the end. It is rather a discussion-driven approach to dive into your architectures and help understand what your risks are. There's also no score. It is there for you to learn, improve using best practices. Now, those are very pragmatic and proven advice from AWS, gathered from the vast experience working with other customers. They by any means are not some theoretical abstract that no one can achieve. And the last intent to note is that the well-architected review is not a one-time check. You should think of it as a satellite to your workload that regularly reads its status and compares with the previous milestones. As your workload does, WellArchitected Framework is changing too. Due to ever-growing portfolio of AWS services, with time, new best practices are also introduced to the white paper and the tool itself. That is why it's very important to run well-architected review against your workloads from time to time. Now, what choices there are for these well-architected reviews? Since the well-architected tool was launched in the AWS console, every customer has the option to do well-architected review together with his technical and business leaders. Also, you can do well-architected review together with an AWS partner, such as CloudWiser. Partners are trained to conduct these reviews, have necessary experience to drive the discussion, and in the end, provides you with remediation plans and/or hands-on work. And lastly, there is an opportunity to do well-architected with the AWS if you have a direct relation with solution architects there, or have enterprise support agreement that comes with a dedicated technical account manager, or TAM in short. So there are several choices. It might look that it's quite difficult to choose the right one. So to sum up their benefits, self-service allows you to have full control of how often and how fast you want to review your systems and how much you want to cover. Actually, AWS recommends considering this way to become your team's approach to regularly improving your systems. Another cool thing about well-architected tool is that you can use it as a guidance to review not only AWS-based workloads, but also based in other clouds or even on-prem. It is really a great tool, and we can't recommend enough to make use of it. Okay, next, the benefit of having a partner do the review is that you might recognize you do not have the necessary skills or time to go through the review, or once you go through it, to remediate the identified risks. And that's where partners can help. And the last, while it is great to have a direct access to skilled AWS solution architects team, not everyone has it. Also, a number of and scope of workloads you would like to cover might take quite a long time for AWS solution architects to do. So therefore, first and the second options are the best. Let's just briefly touch on the well-architected tool itself. This great resource is available for every AWS customer to use, free of charge, and it is in the AWS console. Bundled together with the WellArchitected Framework and Pillars white papers, this gives all the power you need to start working on and perfecting your workloads. But wait, there are better news just around the corner. Engaging with a well-architected partner is great because that allows you to get a free well-architected review. Now, what comes out from that review is usually an improvement plan with the statement of work on how to address those found risks. Not only that, but also partner helps you to make those proposed improvements, adding new features or capabilities to your systems. And having partner doing the well-architected review and the remediation work afterwards obviously comes at a cost. And here, AWS steps in. This might surprise a lot of you, but AWS wants you to succeed. So with an approved SOV, AWS can credit back customers up to $5,000 to compensate for partners' effort. And we see this as a win-win-win situation. and a great synergy for all the involved parties. First, customers get their infrastructure improved for free. Second, we as a partner help our customers and build a relationship with them. And third, we help AWS with having customers' infrastructures adhering to their best practices. And it is not common to see such a great deal in the market. So what did we learn today during these 20 minutes? WellArchitected is something you want to continuously improve and adapt based on what the best practices are, as they too develop over time. So do it regularly. I would suggest you, if you could do this on a frequent basis against your existing workloads, to determine whether they continue using those best practices. Also, it is recognized that it's much better to do WellArchitected review earlier rather than later. You will get much more benefit in the long run, and it is easier to architect during the initial phase rather than while the workload is in production. Another important point is that here we are not identifying where people have made decisions. Most probably something wasn't done not because they chose not to do something, but because these complex systems, someone didn't think about it at the right moment. But the good news is that everything is fixable here. So please don't think about well-architected review findings just as a list of things you have done wrong. Rather, think of it as an opportunity to fix those. Appreciate the awareness about your systems and exposed findings that these reviews bring to you. And well, once you know what's wrong, what needs fixing, you can focus on it, prioritize and reduce your risks. And if you think that there are perfect workloads with zero improvement needed somewhere around you, rest assured there's not. And we're now at the final piece of this webinar. It is important to highlight that you are not left in the dark, and there are a lot of resources around well-architected. Partners included, they are also a resource as we're doing this webinar right now. These are something not all customers think about where to look for the information, and start from the exemplary AWS white papers on the well-architected framework itself, and then you can dive into each pillar. So if the thing about well-architected framework is that each white paper also has a Q&A section where the questions are actually from the real life, so they are very relatable. Then there also are free training courses available for you to familiarize with the well-architected concepts and get up to speed reviewing your systems. So you can check them as well. Then there's even a well-architected content website available where all related well-architected information is stored in one place. And last but not least, there are self-paced well-architected labs available in various difficulties, from you getting familiar with the tool, with the look and feel of it, exploring each pillar's possible fixes in depth. So it's greatly recommended. And I think this is it on my part of the presentation. Our advice is to go through online resources, familiarize yourself about best practices, reach out to partners for help, and one way to review your first workload right now and get started. Okay, I guess it's Q&A time for us. But do we have some of them?
Yes, Jonas, thanks for the cool presentation. And actually, there's 2 questions right now.
Okay.
One was, how do you define a workload? And usually, web application firewall review process may take...
Well-architected framework, but I guess.
Yeah, sorry. Maybe may takes till report will be provided to the customer. Okay, so I guess the main thing is how much time does it require to conduct from, how do you choose which workload to take and how much time it actually takes to do it?
Okay, understand. So officially, according to AWS, a workload is defined as a set of systems or services that are used to provide business value. However, this definition is a bit vague, so AWS allows customers to elect the definition of the workload by themselves. We consider workloads as set of services and your systems that can be bundled together, that are operating as a whole and are dependent from each other. So basically, you can think of workload as some of your system or application, like the backend could be one of the workloads, the front end could be one of the workloads. If the application is not that big, then the whole front end backend could be one workload. So it depends. Let's discuss this, and yeah, we can help out with the crafting the definition of that workload. And
basically,
about
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and about the time, I will briefly mention later, but actually from the customer's perspective, the time needed is just a half an hour for the initial meeting, and then 2 to 4 hours discussion with our DevOps member. And after that, we present the risk mitigation plan. And well, that depends how many risks there are, how difficult they are to fix. Some of the customer's involvement, of course, will be needed in that step as well.
A question from Mikhail. How WAF works with K8S when many things are encapsulated inside? That's in the Q&A part.
In the QA with the K8, when things are encapsulated. Basically, the WellArchitected framework doesn't go into some specific services and think how they work, how they are isolated from one each other. Well-architected framework is the idea how those workloads should be run for them to adhere to the best practices. So if you're using Kubernetes, well, if your whole application is just run in Kubernetes and isolated from everything else, well, your Kubernetes fleet would be your workload, and we could do well-architected review on that cluster, on that set of containers that you have. And all those questions still apply. Some of them are business related, some of them are technical, some of them are monitoring related. So all of those parts should be present in every workload, and I believe that they are.
Next question. Once again, how come the review is free? And I can answer that. Is that it's not free. It's free for the customer, and its cost is covered by AWS because they see it as a client retention project where when your infrastructure is built correctly, you are happier and feel safer, and everything should be working better. Now, next question was from Laimonas. So well-architected in AWS is like GDPR in EU. I'll also cover that for Jonas. Basically, yes. Only difference is that GDPR is like a compulsory thing for you. If you don't build your infrastructure in AWS according to those best practices, it doesn't necessarily mean, but it might mean that you are more vulnerable to outside attacks, security
outages.
And so on. Yeah. So basically saying that yes, that is true. And then one more for Jonas.
Okay.
Do you have any open source or free tools to recommend which can be used to identify high-risk issues in terms of well-architected pillars?
That's an interesting question, because the well-architected tool is, of course, built by AWS. It's not open source per se, but that tool can be used for any workload inside AWS, outside AWS, on-prem. It doesn't matter. You can actually not use the tool, but use the ideas from the WellArchitected Framework white paper and the pillars white papers. So you will get idea how those workloads should be run, and you can actually do without the tool. The tool is here for you to help to compare your progress along over time. So you can set milestones, for example, before first remediation, after remediation, after 1 year or half year, and see how that workload, what's the status of it, of adhering to best practices. So the tool is here to help you, but if you do not want to use it because it's not open source, you can use all the ideas that AWS gathered through that last decade and improvise by yourself and conduct that review on your workloads. Actually, you can even go into the tool and take those questions and suggested remediation examples and just do without the tool.
Perfect. So I think we're done with the questions, as if there aren't any more popping up. So, but we will not be far away. Just an email if you want to ask any questions. So you can always come to us with any AWS related topics. And I understand that now when Q&A is over, Jonas, do you want to do it, or should I do it?
Let's just quickly recap our offer of well-architected review. So as I mentioned at the beginning, one of our attendees will receive a free well-architected review done on the workload on priority basis. And working with CloudWiser is a really very simple process. As I said briefly, we get on introduction call. It's around half an hour. Then we tell you all the needed details about well-architected review. Spoiler alert, this webinar, it's much more in-depth than the call. Then we are introducing you to our DevOps member who will conduct this review together with you. Then you are just having 2 meetings with our DevOps member. Each meeting will be around 2 hours, so count 2 to 4 hours in total for the discussion part. And after that, we will present our findings, our remediation report, and we will have to sit at the table once again and decide which of those risks are we mitigating. And of course, depending on the risks, on the scope of the work involved, we will agree what we are fixing. And that depends how much of your involvement will be needed for us to help to get to the right systems, have the right access, do the stuff that we have to do. And yeah, after the fix is done, you're a happy customer, and we will ask AWS to reimburse us for our effort helping out with your workloads.
But so it will never come to the client. That's the main
Right.
thing. The only thing that you will get out of it is the results and the remediation, which means the issues that might come up are fixed. And the key here is that it's possible for everybody. So we'll definitely get in touch with everybody to go over the offer. But drum roll, please. And the winner of the first in line prize goes to was chosen by a machine, not by me, was Victor Lillemäe. So probably based on the name fellow Estonian, we do have your email. So congratulations, we'll get in touch with you after the webinar. And all of those who have to be or also want to have this well-architected review, just we will be here for you anyway. So we'll definitely be able to help everybody out and make your AWS journey more scalable.
Yeah. So our reviews are free. Welcome. Write to me or Ott, and we will start the process rolling. And yeah, I think in the end you will be very happy that you did this. It's a good step, and your workloads will be much better afterwards.
Yes, as you can see, our contact details are there. So whenever you want, let us know of your worries or fears or your AWS fears and wishes, and we can help you definitely. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jonas. Thank you for the participants who joined in, and I hope to see you soon in the next webinars.
Yeah, thank you all, guys. I hope it was at least somewhat interesting and you got an idea or two out of it. So I would be grateful if it was the case. Yeah. Okay, I think see you in the next webinars from CloudWiser. And yeah, have a great day, have a nice weekend, and see you next time.
Bye.
Okay, bye.